What if one firework never exploded? What if it just hung in the sky, watching? On a seemingly normal 4th of July night, a strange light appears over the town of Clear Lake, and it never goes away. When children begin to vanish and people forget they even existed. One brave girl unravels the chilling truth behind the glowing orbs, the ancient symbols, and the impossible choice no one should have to make. This isn't just about fireworks, it's about them. And the countdown, it's not over. Step into the terrifying mystery that started with a single light in the sky. Every year, the people of Clear Lake gather beneath the stars to celebrate Independence Day. Fireworks burst in the sky, children laugh, and life feels safe. Normal. But this year, something changes. One firework never explodes. It floats in place, glowing white, unmoving, and unnatural. Most people don't notice. Others laugh it off. But young Emma knows something is very wrong. Her little brother Ben starts behaving strangely, whispering in his sleep, staring at the light like it's calling to him. Then, he vanishes. What follows is a slow descent into a chilling reality where nothing is as it seems. A mysterious symbol burned into the earth, townspeople acting like puppets, a forgotten history buried in dusty archives. Emma must confront forces far beyond her, understanding. Beings that exist in silence and starlight, that take in exchange for balance and offer impossible choices. As the light returns year after year, and as the countdown restarts, new lives are drawn into the cosmic ritual. And now it's someone else's turn. This is not a tale of fireworks and family. This is a slow-burning horror story about memory, sacrifice, and a mysterious force that visits when the sky is at its brightest. What would you choose? To remember the truth, or to live in peace and forget what was taken? Emma had always loved the 4th of July. It wasn't just the fireworks or the food. It was the feeling. That electric buzz of the whole town gathered in one place, the sky just dark enough, the scent of grilled hot dogs and fresh-cut grass mixing with the occasional burst of smoke from a firecracker. Every year, the people of Clear Lake brought blankets, lawn chairs, sparklers, and stories to the wide-open field near the lake. And every year, the sky lit up with colors that made even the grumpiest folks smile like kids. But this year, something was off. It started with a sound, not the crack of a firework, but a low hum. So low, it was barely there, more like a feeling in Emma's chest than a noise in her ears. It came just before the firework that didn't explode. She was sitting cross-legged on a blanket with her little brother Ben, who was chewing on a red Twizzler, grinning every time a new burst lit the sky. Her parents sat behind them, talking, with friends and sipping from plastic cups. The sky had already been painted with red, blue, and gold when the strange firework launched. At first, it looked normal, a sharp whoosh as it shot upward, trailing a golden tail. But then, it stopped. Just stopped. Mid-air. Not exploding, not fading. It simply hovered, a pulsing, glowing orb hanging like a quiet star over Clear Lake. It didn't flicker. It didn't move. It just hung there, still and steady, casting a soft white glow. The crowd didn't react much. A few people clapped, thinking it was a trick. Someone behind Emma chuckled and said, "Cool drone show." But Emma knew fireworks. They weren't supposed to behave like that. And drones didn't hum like this one did. Then she looked at Ben. He'd stopped chewing. His candy hung from his fingers, forgotten. His eyes were locked on the light, wide and glassy. His lips moved slowly, forming words Emma couldn't quite hear. "Ben?" she said, nudging him. "Hey, what are you saying?" He didn't answer, didn't even blink. He just kept whispering. Emma turned toward her mom. "Mom, something's wrong with Ben." Her mother looked down, distracted. "He's probably just tired, Em. It's been a long day." "No," Emma insisted. "Look at him. He's acting weird." But by the time her mom crouched beside them, Ben had snapped out of it. He blinked, smiled, and popped the rest of the Twizzler into his mouth. "See?" her mom said with a smile. "Tired." But Emma didn't feel tired. She felt watched. She glanced back up. The light was still there. It was the only firework that hadn't faded, and the show was almost over. The final explosions thundered into the sky. Red, white, and blue bursts of color that made the crowd cheer and wave little flags. The finale roared like a summer storm, shaking the ground and lighting up the faces of every person in that field. And through it all, the light hovered, silent, still. When the final crackle faded and the smoke drifted away, people clapped and began folding blankets. Children begged for one last snow cone. Adults checked their phones. No one looked up, but Emma did. The light was still there. "Ben," she whispered, "do you see it?" He didn't answer. He just looked at her with those same glassy eyes and said something that made her blood run cold. "They're here now." And then, just like that, he smiled. A normal little boy smile, as if he hadn't said anything at all. Emma stood slowly, staring at the light one last time before her mom called her over to help pack up. It stayed there, fixed in the sky like a second moon, waiting, watching. And as they walked away from the field, Emma didn't look back, but she felt it. The light that didn't fade hadn't come to be pretty. It had come to begin something. The morning after the fireworks felt like waking up inside someone else's dream. The sunlight was too pale, the air too still. Emma noticed it the second she stepped out onto the porch. The usual sounds of summer, chirping birds, buzzing cicadas, the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog, were gone. Just silence, thick and unnatural, like the town had been placed under a giant glass dome. She looked up at the sky, half expecting to see the hovering light still there. It was gone. But that didn't comfort her. "Mom," she called, stepping back inside. "Where's Ben?" "In the kitchen," her mom replied, flipping pancakes, with a tired smile. Emma walked into the kitchen where Ben sat at the table, quietly eating. He didn't seem upset, but he wasn't humming like he usually did. In fact, he wasn't saying anything, just chewing. Slowly, staring at the syrup as if it held secrets only he could read. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked him, pulling out a chair across from him. He nodded. "Did you have any weird dreams?" Another nod. She waited for him to explain, but he didn't. Just took another bite and kept staring. Her mom placed a plate of pancakes in front of her. "It's probably just the excitement from last night. You know how kids get all wound up?" But Emma noticed the dark circles under her mom's eyes, the way her voice lacked its usual pep, the way her dad didn't come downstairs at all that morning. When she asked about him, her mom just said, "He's not feeling well," and left it at that. After breakfast, Emma needed air, normal air, so she grabbed her bike and pedaled toward the fireworks field. The town felt off. People walked differently, slower, more robotic. Mr. Jenkins, the always chatty mailman, didn't even wave when he passed. Mrs. Franklin, who usually watered her garden at the same time every morning, just stood on her porch, staring at the sky with a cup of coffee in her hand. It was cold. The coffee. Emma could see the steam wasn't rising anymore. She pushed harder on the pedals, a chill crawling up her spine even though the sun was warm. The field looked different too. The grass was burned, perfectly burned in a wide, circular patch. In the very center of it was something no one else seemed to notice. A symbol. Emma dropped her bike and walked slowly into the field. The air felt heavy here, like it didn't want her to breathe. Her sneakers crunched over scorched grass until she stood directly over the mark. A jagged circle, almost like a sun, with 4 sharp lines jutting outward like claws. The hairs on her arms stood straight up. She pulled out her phone and took a picture. The screen flickered, then glitched. When she checked the gallery, the image was warped. Colors bleeding, the symbol twisted and unrecognizable. She took another. Same result. It was like the field was rejecting the image. "Okay, what are you?" she whispered to the mark. She crouched down, touching the edge of the burned symbol. The ground was cold, icy, despite the summer heat. Oh, soft sound behind her made her jump. Footsteps. She turned. Ben. He was standing just at the edge of the field, barefoot, wearing pajamas, his arms limp at his sides. "Ben, what are you doing here?" she called, rushing toward him. He didn't answer. He didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the symbol behind her. Emma grabbed his shoulders gently. "Hey, Ben, did you follow me?" He blinked slowly and finally looked at her. "I heard them," he whispered. Emma's stomach dropped. "Heard who?" Ben looked past her toward the woods. "The ones from the light." His voice wasn't scared. It was calm. Too calm. "Ben, we have to go home," she said, pulling him gently away from the field. But as they turned to leave, she noticed something strange in the trees. Movement. Shapes that didn't belong. Figures, just for a second. Gone before she could truly see them, like shadows that blinked out the moment her eyes focused. She tightened her grip on Ben's hand and started walking faster. That night, the town felt colder. Her parents didn't speak much during dinner. The television glitched randomly, the sound cutting in and out, and when Emma looked out the window, she swore she saw the same faint glow above the woods where the field met the trees. She couldn't sleep. Neither could Ben. At around 2 a.m., she heard him whispering again. Not to himself. To someone. She crept to his door, pressing her ear to the wood. "I told her already," he was saying in a flat tone. "She won't stop, but I'll try." Silence. "No, she doesn't see it like we do." More silence. "Okay, I won't let her ruin it." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She backed, away from the door. Suddenly, Ben's voice came again. Louder this time. "Good night, Emma." She froze. The door hadn't opened. He hadn't moved, but he knew she was there. She hurried back to her room, heart racing, trying not to cry. Something had changed. In the town, in the people, in Ben. And the light that didn't fade? It had done something, something that was just beginning. It happened on the 3rd night. The night the humming came back. The day itself had passed like a scene Emma wasn't meant to be part of. Muted, off-kilter, like everyone was reciting lines from a forgotten play. At the grocery store, the cashier stared through her for a full 30 seconds before scanning a single item. At home, her dad still hadn't left his room. Her mom, pale and distant, moved like her joints were stiff, like gravity pulled on her differently now. Emma tried to speak to her, to ask what was wrong, but her mom just smiled a slow, empty smile and said, "It's a nice day, isn't it?" The sky was gray. That night, Ben was quiet at dinner. Too quiet. He didn't even poke at his food, just sat there like a statue, Fingers curled gently around the edge of his plate. Emma watched him, a pit of unease growing in her stomach. When bedtime came, he didn't resist, didn't ask for a story, just climbed into bed, lay on his back, and stared at the ceiling with wide, unblinking eyes. "Good night," she said softly. He didn't answer. Not then. Emma woke sometime after midnight to the humming, faint but growing, a low, steady vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It pressed against her skull, made her teeth ache. The air was wrong again, still and cold, as though the world outside had stopped breathing. She threw off her covers and rushed down the hallway barefoot, heart thudding. Ben's door was ajar. "Ben," she whispered, pushing it open. His bed was empty. The window was wide open, curtain fluttering in a wind that didn't exist a second ago. The sheets were twisted, the room quiet except for the now sharp electric hum in the distance. Emma leaned out the window and gasped. A faint light pulsed, in the direction of the woods. Not bright, not fireworks. Something else. She ran, didn't bother to wake her parents. Somehow she knew they wouldn't respond. They were no longer part of this. Shoes forgotten, heart hammering, she tore down the street and across the sleeping town, the houses watching her like they knew something she didn't. She reached the fireworks field, and there, just beyond the scorched grass, the light pulsed steadily in the trees. White-blue, alive, unnatural. "Ben," she called into the night. "Ben!" No answer. She stepped into the circle again, heart pounding. The symbol was back, but it had changed. Where once there had been 4 jagged lines branching out, now there were 5. The lines were longer, sharper, as if they'd grown like claws scratching their way out from the earth. "They're counting," she whispered. "Counting what?" Then she remembered. The article from the library. 6 children, 1 each night. Ben was the 5th. The search began. At dawn. Her parents didn't even cry. They sat on the couch like they were waiting for the power to come back on. The police came, took notes, asked tired questions. Emma answered as much as she could, but every word felt like screaming into a void. No one else remembered the light in the sky. No one else remembered the symbol in the field. She biked to the library again, desperate for answers. And there, buried beneath decades of dust, she found it. A yellowing newspaper clipping from July 5th, 1965. The same field. The same hovering orb. The same missing children. 6 of them. The article mentioned a strange mark scorched into the grass, exactly like the one Emma had seen. Beneath it, scribbled in faded ink, someone had written a phrase in shaky handwriting. They come during celebration. They choose. They mark. They take. Her skin crawled. She turned the page. The town had covered it up, claimed the children had run away together, that the light was a weather balloon, that the symbol was the result of a prank. But the article didn't end there. A single sentence at the bottom chilled her to her core. Only 1 child came back, but he was not the same. Emma slammed the book shut. That night she returned to the field. Alone. She had to find Ben. Had to do something. The E symbol now had 6 jagged lines. 6. The final number. It pulsed beneath her feet like it had a heartbeat of its own. And above the trees. The light returned. It didn't hover this time. It descended, slowly, silently, until it touched the ground just beyond the tree line. Emma stepped forward. Branches cracked underfoot. The trees seemed to lean away from her as she passed, as if they didn't want to witness what came next. The humming was stronger here. It filled her skull, her lungs, her very blood. Then she saw it. A ring of lights, 7 of them, hovering in a circle just above the forest floor. Inside that ring stood a boy. Not Ben, or not only Ben. He looked older, paler. His hair was the same, but his posture was wrong. His eyes, too bright, too knowing, locked onto hers. "Ben?" she whispered. He tilted his head, smiled faintly. "They're listening," he said. The lights pulsed. The air folded in on itself. Emma took a step forward. Then everything went black. She woke up at home. In her bed. The sun was shining. Birds chirped. Voices echoed from the kitchen downstairs. Her mom and dad, laughing, talking. As if everything was normal. As if none of it had happened. She rushed to Ben's room. He was there. Lying in bed. Sleeping peacefully. She shook him awake. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking up at her with that same too bright stare. "Emma," he said like a greeting, not a question. "You're back," she whispered, unsure whether to cry or scream. "What happened to you?" He didn't answer. He just smiled, and in that smile was something else. Something watching. Something not Ben. In the woods, deep beneath the scorched soil, the symbol glowed faintly. The 7 lines were complete. But the countdown was only the beginning. The forest had always been a place of wonder for Emma. In the fall, it burned orange and gold, and in the summer, the air buzzed with life. She and Ben used to ride their bikes down the winding, dirt trail, pretending they were explorers discovering ancient lands. But now, the forest felt different. It watched her. It remembered. 3 nights after Ben came back, she made her decision. There were too many questions, too many things left unsaid. Ben walked and talked like himself, almost, but his laugh was hollow. His gaze lingered too long. Sometimes she'd catch him standing at the window, whispering words with no sound, lips forming shapes that looked like no language she'd ever seen, and he no longer slept. At night, he just lay in bed with his eyes open, unmoving, waiting. That was when Emma knew whatever came back from the woods wearing her brother's face wasn't fully him. She had to go back, to the forest, to the lights, to them. She packed quietly after midnight. A flashlight, her notebook, 2 granola bars, her grandpa's old walkie-talkie, the one he used during camping trips, and a compass, just in case the woods tried to twist on her like they did in her dreams. Outside, the air was thick with that strange metallic scent again, like rain on hot wires. The streets were silent, not empty exactly, just holding their breath. The trail to the woods was overgrown now, even though it had only been a week since the fireworks. Leaves drooped like they were sick. Tree trunks looked darker, thicker. The air grew cooler with every step. And behind her, the town faded like a photograph left out in the sun too long. Colors dulling, sound disappearing. She reached the clearing where the field met the forest. The symbol was gone. But the soil still smelled burned. Emma clicked on her flashlight and stepped past the tree line. Inside the forest, time unraveled. Every step seemed too quiet, too loud. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears like a drum. The trees leaned in close, branches curled like fingers. Mist slithered along the ground, brushing against her legs like a warning. She walked deeper, following no trail but instinct. Deeper, past a tree with bark that looked like it had been peeled away, past a stone circle that hadn't been there last time. Then she heard it. Voice. Not calling her name. Calling her. Like it had always known she'd come. She followed. The path narrowed. Branches clawed at her arms, snagged her shirt. Something scurried just beyond the light. Once she swore she heard giggling. Children's voices, high-pitched and echoing, fading too quickly to be real. Then the trees opened into a wide hollow, and Emma froze. 7 lights hovered in the air, motionless. Soft, white-blue orbs arranged in a perfect circle, floating above the ground like stars that had lost their sky. In the center stood Ben. His arms were raised, his eyes were shut, but he was smiling. Emma's breath caught. "Ben," she whispered. The lights pulsed once. Ben's eyes opened, but they were wrong. Too wide, too calm. "I told you not to come," he said. His voice echoed, not just in sound, but in her mind. It vibrated behind her eyes. "I had to," Emma said. "I had to find out what they did to you." Ben lowered his arms. The lights began to spin, slowly, like a carousel from another world. A low hum filled the hollow, rising in pitch. The ground vibrated beneath her feet. "They didn't do anything," he said, stepping closer. "They showed me." "Showed you what?" she asked. Ben tilted his head. "Everything. Before. After. What we are. What they are." His gaze drifted up. The lights spun faster. Emma felt herself pulled toward the center of the circle. Her legs didn't move. Something in the air was drawing her in. "You can't have him," she said through clenched teeth. "He's my brother." Ben smiled. "I'm still your brother, but I'm also more now." The lights flared, brilliant and blinding. Emma squeezed her eyes shut. When she opened them, she wasn't in the forest anymore. The sky above her was not a sky at all, but a dome of shifting lights, colors she couldn't name. The ground was smooth, glowing with soft patterns that moved under her feet like ripples in water. Ben stood before her, but he wasn't alone. Tall, thin figures surrounded them, faceless, draped in shadows and starlight. They didn't move, didn't breathe, but Emma felt them thinking, watching, speaking without sound. "You're not supposed to be here," Ben said. "You weren't chosen." "I don't care," she said, stepping forward. "You were. And they took you." He nodded. "They take what listens." I listened. Emma turned to the figures. "Give him back." The light dimmed. A voice filled her head, layered, ancient, emotionless. One returns, one stays. Balance, always. Emma shook her head. "No, there's another way. There has to be." The ground rippled beneath her. Trade, one for one, one for many. You choose. And then she understood. This was never about one child. It was about equilibrium, a gift for a price, a piece for a soul. The humming reached a peak. Ben reached out his hand. "Come home," he said gently. "It doesn't hurt, not really." Emma looked at her brother, the real him. Still there, still somewhere behind those strange eyes, and she made her choice. She screamed into the light. No deal. The world fractured. Light shattered. The figures dissolved into smoke, and she was falling. She woke on the forest floor, gasping, alone. The lights were gone. The mist, the hum. Gone. Only her flashlight remained, flickering weakly beside her. She scrambled up and ran like her life depended on it. When she burst out of the woods, the sun was rising, and behind her, the trees stood still, silent, as if nothing had happened at all. Ben was in his bed when she got home, sleeping, breathing, but when he opened his eyes, they were soft again. Familiar. Human. He blinked at her. "Em," he said, "I had the weirdest dream." She didn't answer. She just hugged him. Tight, and for the first time in days, he hugged her back. But in the deepest part of the woods, far beneath the roots and soil, a symbol still glowed faintly. Waiting. Because the forest doesn't forget, and neither do they. Emma hadn't told anyone what happened in the forest. Not her parents, who were suddenly too cheerful, too perfect, like plastic dolls on a well-staged set. Not her friends, who all swore the fireworks had been amazing and had no idea that Ben had ever gone missing. And not Ben himself, who now played with Legos, asked for peanut butter sandwiches and laughed like he used to, but occasionally paused mid-sentence, eyes glazed over like a radio picking up static. Emma kept her silence. But her silence did not protect her, because the forest and they remembered. And soon they came again. It started small. First, she noticed her reflection blinking out of sync in the mirror. Then her dreams turned strange. Cold, silver skies, 1,000 faceless, figures standing in rings, whispering her name in tones that weren't voices, but thoughts. Always that same humming. Low, endless, building toward something she couldn't see. But it wasn't until the 7th night that she felt them return. The humming came not from the outside, but from within. Deep in her bones, in her blood, in the spaces between her thoughts. It drew her from sleep like a hand around her wrist, pulling her from bed, out the door, and into the moonlight. The town was still again. No wind, no dogs barking. Even the crickets had stopped, and hovering above the tree line, just like before, was the light. The one that didn't fade. She walked, not because she wanted to, because she had to. Her feet moved on their own, crunching over gravel and grass into the burned field where the symbol had once been. The soil was clean now. No trace of fire or scorch marks, but she knew it was there, beneath the surface. Still waiting. Then the light descended. No noise, no heat, just a smooth, glowing sphere dropping from the sky like a star choosing where to land. It touched the ground 10 feet in front of her and simply opened. Not like a hatch, not like a door. It peeled, like light itself was being, folded back, revealing not an interior, but a place. A different place. Impossible, infinite, cold and radiant. From the light stepped Ben. Not the Ben from home. The other Ben. The one she saw in the ring of lights in the woods. He was older again, or maybe just more. His body looked the same, but his eyes had galaxies behind them. "Why are you here?" Emma asked, her voice thin in the stillness. "To finish it," Ben replied. "I already said no. This time," he said, "you choose." The ground around her shimmered. The light brightened, and then the forest fell away. Not literally, but everything else vanished. Time, gravity, air. She stood in nothing and everything at once, surrounded by starlight and soundless voices whispering thoughts into her head. She wasn't alone. The visitors had returned, and they were inside her now, speaking through memory and instinct. Balance must be restored. You entered the circle. You crossed the veil. You must choose. Emma felt her thoughts begin to splinter, the pressure of their presence pushing against the walls of her mind like floodwater pressing against a dam. "What am I choosing?" she asked aloud, or maybe not aloud at all. It didn't matter here. Ben stepped forward. Or maybe the memory of Ben. Or a version of him they'd reconstructed from her own grief. One remains, one returns. That is how it has always been. Emma shook her head. You already brought him back. We brought a version of him back. The truth crashed over her like a wave of ice. The real Ben hadn't come back. The one who slept in his bed, who laughed and played and watched the stars, that Ben was built from her memories. A patchwork soul. A ghost dressed in familiar skin. She felt herself slipping, unraveling, her identity pulled thin like smoke. I won't let you take him, she said, her voice cracking. Then you must take his place. Silence followed, and in that silence came a moment of clarity. Sharp, heavy, final. The choice. Not just between her and Ben. Between knowing and not knowing. Between the world as it was and the world as it truly is. She saw, for the first time, how many had made this choice before her. In every generation, on every seventh night after the seventh light. Always one. Always the same deal, dressed in different myths. Disappearances, changelings, UFOs, angels, demons. It had always been them. Watching, balancing, taking. Emma closed her eyes, took a breath. I'll do it, she whispered. I'll take his place. The lights surged. The visitors spoke as one. As it is decided, so it shall be. And just like that, silence. Emma opened her eyes. She was in her room. Sunlight streamed through the window. Downstairs, the smell of pancakes. She blinked. Her body felt light, empty but whole. She walked to the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her. But it wasn't her. Not completely. It had her shape, her voice, her eyes, but deep behind those eyes was something watching, something remembering. And far away, beyond stars, beyond time, beyond anything human, Emma stood in the circle of light, her real self. Unseen, unaged. A new observer in the realm between realms. She had chosen. Ben was safe. For now, but the balance would not last forever. Because the visitors, they always return. And eventually, someone else will have to choose. There was no sound, no scream, no thunder, no explosion, just a flash, a single brilliant pulse of light that seemed to swallow everything. The trees, the stars, the very air. It wasn't a burst of color like fireworks, but pure, impossible white. Not even white, really. Something beyond light. Something that felt like it came from the spaces between seconds. And then, Emma was gone. No trace, no scorch marks, no echoes of her voice. Just silence. The next morning, the town of Clear Lake awoke to an unsettling calm. The sky was too blue, the streets too quiet. People moved as though in a trance, going through the motions of normalcy with eyes that didn't quite see. Emma's parents sat at the breakfast table. Her mother stirred her coffee slowly, never drinking it. Her father stared out the window, eyes glazed, unaware of the spoon still in his hand. They didn't mention Emma, didn't ask where she was, didn't even seem to realize something, or someone, was missing. At school, no one asked about her empty seat. No one said her name. Except one person, Ben. He sat at the back of the classroom staring out the window, fingers tapping a rhythm only he could hear. His teacher asked him a question, but he didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the woods outside and whispered, "She did it." No one noticed, but Ben remembered. At night, he walked to the edge of the field where the firework show had been held, the same spot where the symbol had burned into the ground. There was no sign of it now. Grass had grown back, Wildflowers bloomed and even the air felt softer, but Ben knew better. He sat cross-legged in the center of the field and looked up at the sky. Stars blinked into view. Among them, one light hovered too still, too steady, just like before. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "You're still there, aren't you?" The light pulsed, once. Meanwhile, somewhere else, in a place that wasn't a place, Emma stood at the edge of a vast, swirling void. Here, time was not linear. Here, thoughts had texture. Here, reality bent to memory, and memory bent to something older than all things. She was not afraid. She was not alone. Other beings drifted nearby. Some that once had names, others that had been traded away like coins. All of them were observers now, like her. Eyes without shape. Minds without limits. They did not speak, but Emma felt their presence, their thoughts brushing against her like waves, and she watched. Not Earth, not exactly. She watched possibility, watched the visitors in their endless patience, weaving between realities, making offers to desperate hearts and silent minds. Sometimes people said yes. Sometimes they resisted. But always, always, a choice was made. It had to be. This was the balance. Emma thought of Ben. She thought of his laugh, his lopsided grin, the way he used to fall asleep during thunderstorms and dream about flying. He was safe now. He was real now. That had been her choice. And for now, the world continued, spinning. But she knew what the others knew. The countdown never truly ends. Back in Clear Lake, people began to forget. Forget the light that didn't fade. Forget the missing time. Forget Emma. Her room gathered dust. Her voice disappeared from recordings. Her name faded from the school registry. Only Ben remembered, and sometimes, late at night, he would walk out to the backyard and trace the symbol in the dirt with his finger. 7 jagged lines in a circle, one for each light, one for each decision. He would look up at the sky and whisper, "Not yet," because deep in his bones, he knew they would come again. Not tonight, not this year, but someday. And when they did, someone else would feel that hum. Someone else would see the firework that didn't explode, and someone else would stand where Emma stood, facing the flash, facing the choice, facing them, and maybe, just maybe, Emma would still be watching. It began again with a sound, not the cheerful crackle of fireworks or the laughter of a summer night. No, this was deeper, older, a low hum, like the earth itself holding its breath. Faint at first, barely there, like a memory brushing against the edge of a dream. It had been exactly 1 year. Clear Lake prepared once more for its beloved 4th of July celebration, as it always did. Flags were strung across porches. Barbecue smoke floated through the air. Children ran barefoot through sprinklers, faces sticky with popsicle juice. To most, nothing had changed, but for Ben, everything was different. He stood on the edge of the same field where it had all started, staring at the sky. The grass had grown tall since last summer, but he didn't care. His fingers itched to trace the old symbol in the dirt. 7 jagged lines, a perfect circle. No one else remembered. Not his teachers, not the neighbors, not even his parents, whose eyes had grown strangely dim in the past year, like lights left on too long. But Ben did. He remembered everything. Emma's face, her voice, her choice, and the light that never faded. The celebration began as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky with golden fire. Families laid out blankets. Teens set off small fireworks in the parking lot. A band played patriotic songs from a wooden stage while fireflies blinked in and out of the growing dusk. Ben wandered through the crowd like a ghost. People smiled at him, patted his shoulder, offered him lemonade. None of them noticed the shadow behind his smile. None of them saw how his eyes darted constantly to the horizon, waiting, measuring, counting. He hadn't told anyone, but he'd started seeing it again. Them again. Not in full, not like before, just glimpses, flickers. A figure at the edge of the woods that vanished when he turned, a symbol drawn in the condensation on a bathroom mirror. His reflection whispering things his mouth hadn't said. He knew what it meant. The cycle was returning, and tonight, the countdown would begin. The fireworks started just after 9. A chorus of oohs and ahs rippled across the field as the first burst of red bloomed overhead, followed by gold, green, blue. The crowd cheered, clapped, laughed. The sky was alive with light and sound. Ben sat alone on a picnic blanket near the back of the field, arms wrapped around his knees, staring not at the fireworks, but through them, waiting. He could feel it, coming, in his chest, in the ground, in the air itself. And then he saw it, one firework rising higher than the others, straight up, trailing silver sparks. But when it reached its peak, it didn't explode. It stopped, hovered, and began to glow. Pure, steady white light, exactly like before. Ben stood. His heart raced, but his face remained calm. His hands trembled, but not from fear. The countdown had begun again. No one else noticed. They were too busy laughing, filming, chasing toddlers with sparklers. But Ben saw what they didn't. The light was different this time. Not just a single, glowing orb, but one surrounded by others. 6 smaller lights, dim at first, barely visible like shadows in the sky. Ben's breath caught. 7. They were all there now. He whispered the numbers aloud like a mantra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His voice caught. The 7th hadn't arrived yet, because the 7th wasn't in the sky. 7th was on the ground. A chill ran down his spine as he slowly turned. Behind him, near the trees, a girl stood alone, not part of the crowd, not clapping, not smiling, just watching. She looked to be about his age, maybe 13, black hoodie, dirt on her shoes, a notebook clutched tightly in one hand. She was staring up at the lights, eyes wide with something between awe and terror. Ben walked toward her. "Do you see it?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, startled. "What?" "The one that didn't explode," he said, nodding at the glowing orb in the sky. Her eyes flicked back up, and she nodded slowly. "I thought. I was the only one." "You're not," Ben said. "I've been dreaming about it," she whispered. "The lights, the sound, that symbol." She flipped open her notebook to a sketch. 7 jagged lines in a circle. Ben's stomach twisted. "They chose you," he said. The girl blinked. "Chose me for what?" Ben glanced up at the sky again. The lights were beginning to drift lower, slowly, purposefully, like stars returning to Earth. "For the next choice," he said. She frowned. "What choice?" Ben stepped back. "You'll know," he said softly. "Soon." The light above them pulsed. Once, and the hum returned. Low, deep, unmistakable. The same sound that had pulled Emma into the woods. The same sound that had changed everything. Around them, the town kept cheering, blind to the impossible unfolding right above them. But Ben knew, and now, so did she. In a town where no one remembered Emma, where time itself seemed to bend and heal, around loss, the countdown had quietly restarted. 7 lights. 1 choice. And the visitors, they had returned, watching, waiting, balancing. Because this world, our world, is always just barely out of balance. And every now and then, something must be given to keep the rest from falling apart. This time, it wouldn't be Emma. This time, it would be someone new. And so the cycle turns. Tick, tick, tick. The countdown has begun. Are you ready to see what everyone else forgot? Like, comment your theory, and subscribe for more eerie tales that will keep you up at night. Don't forget to hit the bell. The countdown has already started.